Hey, and welcome to Round the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Wow, I even messed that up today. Welcome to the show, guys. Got a great one for you on this Thursday evening. Lots of stuff, lots of fun, including Tim Apple. Who's Tim Apple? You'll find out. That's a fun little video. Then we have Glenn Beck. I know we're bringing back some of the oldies. I mean, we got Glenn Beck, we got Laura Ingraham. And then we got Martin Shkreli. Martin Shkreli. What is this, like 2017? What's going on here? But no, we got great stories on all these people. Plus the fun stuff from yesterday that we didn't get to, including healthcare. What does the CEO of GoFundMe think about our healthcare system? That's fun. Like I said, a lot of fun video here, and of course, something that I love to do is social media reaction. So there's plenty of stuff on that as well in a lot of these stories. So again, fun stuff, right? So now, before we get into that, I got to thank everybody for supporting the show. So I actually have some news on that. So what I did is earlier today I went through and, kind of changed up my Patreon, right? So I've actually created several different tiers, and I've renamed them. So, for example, there's level 1 members, level 2, level 3, and super members, right? So let me explain that real quick. So level 1 member is like, you give $1 a month, you get a shout out on air, and, you get to know that you're supporting independent progressive media. Number 2, a level 2 member actually gets the full show ad-free through Patreon. So, you go to your Patreon, you log in, and you'll get a link in a post to the live video, no ads, and actually it also has the breaks removed. So I go through, I edit out the breaks, and I post that up on YouTube for you guys. And I am also working on giving you a podcast version of that. So if you want to podcast it, fantastic. And I'm, getting through it. I'm getting set up with like iTunes and stuff. So I can put my, put the show up in podcast form for those of you who like to do that. So that's just something that I want to do for my patrons or members that I want to call them now. I know it's going to get confusing because the people who join on YouTube are also channel members. And you guys also get shout outs on air as well. So again, I'm trying to work through all this and trying to figure it out so I can best serve you guys the way that you guys have been serving me for so long. And I really want to give some stuff, some bonuses, and something just to give, to thank you guys for your support and to sort of give back. And so that's what I'm trying to do. And of course, I'll take suggestions on how to actually do that. So if you guys got suggestions on something that you'd like to see, I want to know. Let me know. So, and that's what I'd like to do. Okay. Now, that said, I do want to give some patron shout outs. We will start with, let's see, where did I leave off yesterday? I believe we left off, and I'm not entirely sure, at Howard Chen. So Howard Chen, Iqbal Zarguni, Irving Gonzalez, Isaac J.E. Douglas, Jay Miller, Jacinto Rico, Jackie Perpira, Jake Z, James Bashma, and James Huth. So thank you to all those members. So there are various different members at various levels of membership. As I said before, if you're a level 2 and above, you get this full show ad-free. So that's kind of awesome. No annoying ads and breaks taken out. Kind of cool. Good perk, right? As far as YouTube membership, we also have new member Real Life Jolie. So thank you, Real Life Jolie, for signing up to be a member on YouTube. You can do that by hitting the join button below, or you can become a member through Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation. So, man, there's a lot of ways to help the show, and that's fantastic. We also put up stickers. So there's now stickers available with the Around the Nation logo and the TYT Nation logo as well. So if you want those, fantastic. All right. Now, let's actually get into some stories instead of plugs, right? All right. Boom. Oh, you're going to love this story. All right. So recently, Donald Trump said something very interesting. Now, that's, again, not a surprise. Trump says a lot of interesting / really dumb stuff. This is no exception. Now, this happened at a meeting of the American Workforce Policy Advisory Board. Now, during this meeting, Donald Trump was speaking with Apple CEO Tim Cook. And during that meeting, he said this.
People like Tim, you're expanding all over and doing things that I really wanted you to do right from the beginning. I used to say, Tim, you got to start doing it over here, and you really have. I mean, you've really put a big investment in our country. We appreciate it very much, Tim, Apple. But we're opening it up. We have to bring people in. We want them to be people based on merit.
Wait. Tim what? Did you just say Tim Apple? As in, like, Tim, who works at Apple? Or is the CEO of Apple? His name's Tim Cook, by the way, not Tim Apple. Now, look, I don't know if this is on purpose, to be honest. Like, because it's not the first time he's done this before. He actually once called Lockheed Martin CEO Marilyn Houston Marilyn Lockheed. So I don't know if this is intentional, like, oh, you are the CEO of Lockheed, so I will call you Lockheed. You are the CEO. Like, look, Donald Trump loves nicknames, right? Maybe I'm giving him a little too much credit. Maybe I'm not, right? Or maybe he just doesn't remember their names. Doesn't remember their names, or doesn't bother to learn their last names, or I don't know. I mean, if that's the case, he's just replacing their last names with what he thinks the people do. Not sure. Still fun, right? Now, speaking of fun, the internet decided to have some fun with it, and I love that. Laney said, Stable Genius calls Apple CEO Tim Cook Tim Apple, while Princess Nepotism looks on. Oh, I love that. Ivanka's there. She is very silent, but calling her Princess Nepotism, love it. There's more. W. Kamal Bell said, Tim Apple played himself when he decided to go to a meeting with Donald emotionally and morally bankrupt, and Ivanka, Macy put all my clothes on clearance. Again, fun stuff. Parker Malloy made a list. Said Donald President, Tim Apple, Jeff Amazon, Elon SpaceX, and I think that was it on that, but that's fun. Tony Poznansky says, Tim Apple on the streets, red delicious in the sheets. I do enjoy this. Just taking people's... So mine would be Jeff, internet host. No, probably not. No. Jeff, no. You know what? We'll figure that out later. More tweets. Muna says, Tim Apple, whose colleagues include John Reddit and Bill Pornhub. Supple says, Tim Apple with President Orange. That's a good one. Jimmy Apple. Now, I love this. Jimmy Apple says, we're getting the whole gang together. Tim Apple, Jeff Amazon, Elon Tesla, Mark Facebook, Jack Twitter, Sundar Google. There's a lot. Kazweta points out, he does this often. The confusion is not a bug, it's a feature. Now, I wonder why, though. Maybe his brain has rotted like the core of an apple, right? Just gone. He is unbelievably dumb, so I wouldn't be surprised. 25th Amendment, that's all I'm saying. Pat Cunan says, I wish Tim Apple would talk some sense into Howard Starbucks. You know what? I agree with that. Howard Starbucks does not need to be running as president. That is horrible and ridiculous. Trayvon Free says, please, Tim Apple's my work name. Call me Mr. iPhone. Couple more here. One is from Darth is actually really good. Darth says, Jared, no effing security clearance. That's an important story as well. Because he should not be having security clearance. Because the guy seems to be going to Saudi Arabia and ditching his staff while he goes and talks to Mohammed Bon Salman. So that's an important point. And finally, Chris Geidner says, Tim Apple. In fairness, there are people in my phone such as Tim Grinder or John Scruff or worse. So who am I to judge? And maybe we're being a little too judgmental. But then again, when it's pretty close to the apocalypse, for example, you have less than 12 years, less than 11 years in order to do something about climate change. When you have more nuclear weapons, you have North Korea's Kim Jong-un rebuilding basically their long-range missile plant, and they have nuclear capability. When you have, of course, all these other countries in the world that have lost faith in the leadership of America because of our president, yeah, you kind of have to have a little bit of fun and have a few laughs at his expense, lest you cry. And I think we're all at this point right now. Okay. Fun times. All right. Moving on, we've got Glenn Beck. All right. Fun stuff. Moving on. Let's get the other video ready here. All right. So, radio host Glenn Beck seems to be having an issue with male role models. He is lamenting the fact that apparently we have none. But thinks, no, there is one male role model left in this world, and that's Donald Trump. Now, he was talking to, I think it was a co-host or somebody about this, and they had this to say. This is fun, watch.
You know, masculinity is supposed to be a bad thing now. It's a toxic thing. It's terrible, and we're being told that all the time. Mm-hmm. So,
I think this is why Donald Trump is so successful, and why he has connected with so many people. Mm-hmm. Think how many. I mean, there are no examples.
All right. So yeah, I have messed up. It's one of those days. Thank you guys for pointing that out. So we'll redo that. So let me go through and
of men being men.
Fix this video here. All right. Hey, and you know what? I'll fix the intro too. There we go. Thanks, you guys. Couldn't do the show without you. Disaster. All right. So Glenn Beck is worried about the lack of male role models. And luckily for him, he believes that there is one role model left for men to look up to, and he discusses it on a show. Watch.
You know, masculinity is supposed to be a bad thing now. It's a toxic thing. It's terrible, and we're being told that all the time. Mm-hmm. So,
I think this is why Donald Trump is so successful, and why he has connected with so many people. Mm-hmm. Think how many. I mean, there are no examples of men being men. Okay, mm-hmm. James Bond. That's it. A movie. Okay, there's no male role models. Would you agree with that?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so Donald Trump, here's a guy who marries a supermodel.
Right.
Is like, yeah, I can make it with any model I want. He's over the top, but he fights back. He doesn't flinch.
He doesn't take any garbage from anybody.
He is the almost cartoon of an alpha dog.
Yeah, he is.
You know what I mean? And I think because we have taken alpha dogs and shot them all, when he comes to the table, there's a lot of guys who are out there going, yeah, damn right.
That's why he was elected, isn't it?
Right. And a lot of young guys that are looking at him almost as a father figure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think that's
a huge part of his appeal. It is absolutely happening.
No, it's not. Oh, they took all the alpha dogs and they shot them. No, they didn't. What are you talking about? No. Okay, so there is this entire false narrative, right? That, oh my God, masculinity is terrible and it's toxic. No, it's not. Masculinity is fine. But there gets to a point where there is a certain thing called toxic masculinity. Now, that's, of course, when you dominate over people, when you treat people deeply unfairly, when you become someone like an incel that starts taking out your frustrations on women. That's toxic. Normal masculinity is absolutely fine. And that, of course, is being strong, right? Being strong. And here's the thing about masculinity, right? So people who are masculine and people who are strong don't have to run around telling everybody that they're strong, right? Don't have to go around telling everybody how much of a manly man they are. Oh, I'm such a man. No, people who are masculine and strong don't have to do that. So that's the idea that is toxic. That's not the toxic masculinity. Going in and being a jerk to people, being a douchebag and an asshole, that makes you toxic, right? And going around thinking that everyone owes you things, like women owe you their bodies because you're a man, that's toxic. That's toxic. And speaking of Donald Trump, he is an embodiment of that kind of toxic masculinity, right? But that's the kind of stuff that Glenn Beck and some of these Trumpists, well, they love. Because they're like, yeah, I'm owed, I can go up and grab women if I want because I'm a real man. No, that doesn't make you a real man. That makes you a child. That makes you somebody who doesn't respect other people and their personal space. That's stuff that Donald Trump did. Donald Trump does not respect his women. He hasn't respected any of his wives. Cheated on somebody with a porn star. His wife wasn't even in the same room when his son was born, Barron. So, no, you want to call that a man? Is that your male role model? Is that somebody you really want to take after? No, dude. Not at all. If you're any kind of real man, you would look at somebody like that who complains and whines all the time that, oh my God, well, everything's so unfair. Everybody's after me. Everybody's coming after me. They're attacking me nonstop. No collusion. Witch hunt. You look at somebody like that and you think that's a man. You ain't a man. You got some self-reflection to do, boy. And let me tell you that. All right. So, that said, let's talk about Glenn Beck and how much of a man he is, right? So, Glenn Beck, before he put on the MAGA hat, right, he actively campaigned against Donald Trump in 2016. And he even got together with Full Frontal host Samantha Bee to go after Trumpism, right? Fast forward to 2019. Actually, before that, when he decided to put on the MAGA hat, and I'm going to tell you why he put on that MAGA hat, by the way. Now he's like, oh, Donald Trump's a father figure. He's such a daddy to everybody. I mean, they all look up to him. No, you know who looks up to him? The white supremacists, deeply insecure people, the incels, super insecure people. Let me tell you what, a lot of us, for quite a long time as men, have been involuntarily celibate. That doesn't mean we get together with our friends and bitch about it and blame other people. That's not what being a man is. Being a man is being better than that. Is finding out what's wrong with me. What am I doing wrong to, you know, make it so that I'm unattractive, and then fixing it, and then fixing yourself and making yourself a better person. That's what being a man is. So, as far as Glenn Beck is concerned, he's not a man. Because at the first opportunity, he put on that MAGA hat and it's like, yes, daddy. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, the reason, of course, is money. I think, over 90 is a recent poll. Like 93% of Republicans have a favorable opinion of Donald Trump. That's his audience. That's Glenn Beck's audience. And he's like, yeah, the money ain't there. Being anti-Trump as a Republican or as a so-called libertarian, right? It ain't there. He's got that audience. He wants to pander to that audience. Why? Because they got money and they'll give him money. So he puts on that hat, debases himself every single day talking about this garbage so he can get a paycheck. And why? It's because the Blaze is literally a rolling dumpster fire that was hemorrhaging money. You know, right-wingers talk about how, oh, we're so good at running businesses. We're fantastic at running business. Look how great we are. But it turns out, unless you have a billionaire daddy behind you, which I believe Glenn Beck had in the Mercer family at first, until they pulled out. And I'm not entirely sure on the Mercers. It could have been Foster Freeze or one of those shady right-wing billionaires, Koch brothers, right? That used to be behind Glenn Beck. Not anymore. Unless you have one of those guys, then you're destined to fail because the audience isn't there. The audience is overwhelmingly white, old, and dying. It's a small audience. So it doesn't surprise me at all that the Blaze was literally on fire. Well, not literally, but figuratively on fire. Because it, you know, there was nothing to it. It was a failure. It flamed out. Now, that said, so we saw the video. Now I want to get to some of the reaction on social media, and you'll love this, right? Now, Robbie Couch tweeted out, I feel like Glenn Beck explaining in earnest why Trump was one of the last male role models does more to highlight how ridiculous our perceptions of gender norms are than any liberal take on toxic masculinity. LOL. Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, well, you know, that is a good point. The Unbearable Lightness Being says, I see Glenn Beck's efforts to reinvent himself as a never-Trump woke conservative are going swimmingly. Heath says, the absolute expert on role models, Glenn Beck, has logged on. The Real TM says, Glenn Beck, heard your comments about the, Trump being the last male role model. Trump is the epitome of toxic masculinity, as I was saying earlier, which, by the way, is not synonymous with plain old masculinity. There are lots of good male role models. Trump is the antithesis of that and a warning to our youth. Now, look, Glenn Beck can't seem to find any positive male role models, right? Well, I got a couple. These are old school. You guys don't know who these guys are. Mr. Rogers. Now, Mr. Rogers was a literal Republican, but he was one of the best male role models that you could find. He always treated people with respect. That is a role model. What about Bob Ross? Bob Ross, the guy who paints stuff, right? He paints you some happy trees. If you're feeling down, he will do something for you. He'll paint happy trees and happy clouds. That's a role model. That's a good role model. That is what a man is supposed to be. Someone who, you know, takes into account other people's feelings, right? And actually helps other people, who gives of himself for others, and actually fights for justice and equality. That's a role model. That's a real man. Now, that's going to be ironic here as I get into the next comment, because the next person the next person's comment that I'm going to read is somebody who has shown that he is not exactly the best role model, and this is Joe Walsh. Now, Joe Walsh, as I said before, he was former Congressman Joe Walsh, kind of got busted for not paying his child support. But even he says, if being an utterly dishonest, proudly ignorant, off-the-charts narcissistic bully is a role model for men, then sure, Donald Trump is a role model. Donald Trump is no role model. No role model. Gosh, I hope you understand that. And just in case that sarcasm wasn't clear enough. Now, look, maybe Joe Walsh actually went around and started paying his child support. And if so, fantastic, right? There's more. Larry DeMeo says, when I think about whose opinion and value on the topic of male role models, Glenn Beck is right up there with the Catholic Church. Ooh. Josh Stack points out something that I talked about earlier. Glenn Beck, role models don't brag about grabbing women's genitals, lie 22 times a day, or over 9,000 times. It's over 9,000 since he, won election. Stokes racial animus, cozy up to murderous dictators, rant and rave against accountability, insult the media, cheat on all his wives, and pay off mistresses. See, there's another thing, right? You know what a real man does when he does something wrong? Takes responsibility. Donald Trump has never taken responsibility for anything in his entire life. Oh no, it's their fault. It's always somebody else's fault when it comes to Donald Trump. If something doesn't work out, it's your fault. And that's of course why he doesn't get involved and does his own stuff. He orders people to do things, sometimes impossible things. And when they can't do it, it's your fault. It's your fault it didn't get done. No, why don't you do it yourself? Because you know it's impossible. And you never do anything by yourself, on your own. You've never done a damn thing in your life. And you know why? It's because you've had your daddy do everything for you. Not a good role model. Terrible role model. There's more. Sahil Desai says, so Trumpservatives like Glenn Beck don't recognize Jesus as a role model. Figures. See, that's another good point. Glenn Beck is supposed to be a Christian. Supposed to be all into Christianity, right? Well, what did Jesus do? Allegedly, of course. Well, in the stories, he gave up all his possessions, hung out with the lepers and the prostitutes, helped them, restored sight to the blind, actually helped people. Donald Trump, did he do any of that? No, Donald Trump has only ever been interested in helping himself. And Glenn Beck is only interested in riding the coattails of the conservative movement so he can make a few bucks, so that his the blaze doesn't literally burn up. More. Sierra says, modeling ourselves after so-called tough guys got us mass shootings, Me Too, and a fascist administration. Maybe what the world needs is fewer male role models. No, I actually disagree with that. I think we need better male role models. And as I mentioned before, Bob Ross, Mr. Rogers, those are fantastic role models, and there are plenty of great role models out there as well. I mean, a lot of people can come up with a lot of great men out there today who are respectful, who are great people, who embody what real male role models should be. I mean, I think, the guy who plays Captain America, Chris Evans, and looks like a great role model to me. And there are a lot of, fantastic people. And the thing is, again, masculinity is fine, 100% fine. But then there's also toxic masculinity, and that is not fine. The toxic kind, of course, again, not being a good person, hiding your feelings, abusing women, taking advantage of people, abusing children. So that's toxic. That's toxic. And I think all of us should be able to agree that that kind of stuff is toxic. And we need to make sure that we don't allow other men to be that way, to be that kind of people, right? So now, Glenn Beck, back to him, right? To point out, just to kind of put the end cap on this one, the kind of man that Glenn Beck is, not a real man. He went from, again, never Trump, right? He's destroying the country. What he's saying is really terrible. We need to stop him. He went from that to, I'm Trump's bitch. That's the least man thing to do. No, look, if you're going to stick with your convictions, do so. Don't just switch up just to get paid. And that's what this is. The Republican Party loves Donald Trump, and Glenn Beck is just trying to get a paycheck. And that's pathetic and sad. Now, finally, one more thing here. Now, the reason that this segment is probably going over really, really well with the conservative crowd is that, look, this plays into their authoritarianism and their victimhood. Again, another thing that a man doesn't do is play the victim all the time, right? So this is that victim of, their men are under attack. Men are under attack. Now, are there significant issues when it comes to men? Absolutely. There are issues where, look, men don't have an equal shake, right? Where we are, for example, raised to be stoic and to actually not be honest with how we feel about things. And also, you know, when it comes to even legal issues like divorce and court and, you know, I was going to say ownership, but that's not the right word. Custody of children, right? So those are significant issues where men do lag behind. Men also lag behind in education, higher education. So there's some really big issues that are facing the male population. There's suicide. There's drug use among men. There's, of course, the stereotypes and tropes of men being stupid and all that stuff, right? So I'm not out here saying that there aren't issues with men. That again, right? You also say that there are way more issues of equality facing women too. And so as a society, maybe we need to look at both, and we should try to get both on an equal footing. And that's the issue here. And so that's what feminism is supposed to be. I know it's been a poisoned word now because there are people that will take the most radical militant feminists and paint the whole entire movement as that single picture. And of course, there is the right-wing outrage machine, which either makes up stories or takes the most ridiculous stories and blows them up in social media and says, oh, this is what all feminists are about. They all hate men and are terrible people. No, dude, that's not the truth. There's probably one or two people like that. But in reality, most feminists, most people actually do agree that, hey, we got issues with men, we got issues with women. Let's raise them both up so that we can all be treated equally. So, but as far as Trump goes, look, and the authoritarianism, right? Republicans, conservatives are authoritarians, as I said before. They see an authority figure, they see somebody who is meaner than anyone else, and they say, oh, that's it. That's my daddy. That's the situation right here. Literally calling Trump a father figure. He is the daddy. He is the, you know, the big male figure, the alpha male, he said, the alpha dog, right? He shouldn't be considered one. He lies all the time, whines about the investigations, calls himself a victim, but for some reason that resonates with people who also want to feel like the victim. And let me tell you, when other people get more rights, it doesn't erase yours. This is not a zero-sum game, right? This is an issue where we can all become more equal and have a better society. And it's just really funny how the so-called alpha males tend to act a lot like betas around an authority figure. Weird how that works. Okay. So that's an interesting segment that's going to get hated on a lot. But I had to get into it. I had to. You know it. All right, I'm going to take a break. We'll come back. We've got Laura Ingraham, Pharma Bro, and the healthcare story. So you're going to love that. So stay right here. Give us a like and a share if you haven't already. I'm waiting for those incels to come after me. So that should be a lot of fun. Or the MRAs. That should also be fun. So we'll see what happens. But you guys stay right here. We've got more stories. Come right back. Around the Nation. Welcome back to the show. Around the nation here. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Let's see. I have quite a bit of super chats here from you guys. So that's awesome. Alex Robbie says, somebody forgot to put pauses in the prompter, I guess. This is getting so bad. I almost choked on my hamburger. I love that. And that's, of course, referring to the Tim Apple story, which is fun. LOL has an interesting observation. Says, I have a theory that Trump was deeply disappointing to his own father. I would not be shocked. It would explain his need to seek approval from authority figures he sees as strong men or strongmen, like people like Duterte or Putin or Kim Jong-un, people like that. See, another trait of an insecure man, or person, I should say, is that they can't take any kind of criticism. And I see that all the time when it comes to Donald Trump. Now, we have more stuff on that, a lot of responses here. Tia Wheeler says, it won't just be the incels. You might have to deal with the crying of the nice guys. The reason that, of course, that I mentioned that is, look, I used to be one of those guys. So I kind of know how it is, right? Yes, I know it's a painful admission, but during one of my basically involuntarily celibate phases in my mid-20s, I was like, why can't I get women to sleep with? I'm such a nice guy. What, I treat them nicely and they don't give me what I want. And then, like, you wake up from that and you're like, what the fuck was I thinking? That is dumb. Women aren't objects. They don't owe you anything. And so that's the thing, right? If only people would wake up from that, because people do. And I woke up from it. I used to be that. I used to have that thought. And look, I'm going to be honest with you. When you get to that point, it's not as if life is going well for you at that point. And I can talk from personal experience. My life was not going well at that point when you have those thoughts. So you got to think about all these incels, right? Their lives are not good. They're not having fun. These people are probably incredibly depressed. And so they lash out. And of course, they lash out in all the wrong ways. And they expect things that they shouldn't be expecting. You do not have the right over someone else's body. So, and it's just about like trying to wake up from that and realizing that the problem starts with how you are perceiving the world and how you are acting. Because you may not be able to control everything else in your life, but you can control yourself and you can control how you react to that. And you can become a better person. And so, and you have to be open to becoming that better person and learning. And you know what's not helping them become better people? Going in circles online, because we've seen that rise online, and just complaining about women all day. So that does not help. So guys, if you were, if you're one of those people that are incel and you're getting all frothy, pissed off, I get it. I've been there. I understand. But you have to go and you have to realize that, wait a minute, maybe there's something wrong and maybe I should be open to change. Maybe, no, they don't owe me anything. I need to go and do this and I need to become a better person. So, anyway. All right. So, one more thing, too. I'm seeing a lot of BDS in here. And I still have another super chat to read, too. And we'll get to that first. Jedi Mullet 77, which, by the way, that's awesome, says, my role models, Optimus Prime, Al Bundy, Elf, Ferris Bueller, Clark Griswold, Doc Brown, Tim the Toolman Taylor, Hank Hill, and Bernie Sanders. It's a nice list you got there. Oh, thank you for those. As far as BDS goes, look, okay, so I don't know Bernie Sanders. Like, I'm not in the head of Bernie Sanders. I don't know why he's not in favor of personally BDS, but he's also not against it. So he's not going to sign on to that and say, well, you know, I'm in favor of that, or I'm going to do that. He just says you shouldn't shut it down. And I think that's a fine position to have. Personally, not like, because that's actually my position. Like, if you want to boycott, that's fine. For me, I don't personally think boycotts work. Generally, I mean, look, you can look at some of the boycotts from, for example, Fox News hosts and getting Bill O'Reilly off the air and things like that. And you'd make a fair argument, right? But look, the real enemy here, and maybe that's like a charged term, but the real problem here is the right-wing Israeli government, right? So the right-wing Israeli government, if you want to do that, well, I mean, you know, if you want to be against that, I'm against that. I don't know how BDS hurts them, right? I'm not sure how BDS hurts that, so I don't know, right? All I'm saying is that if you want to be for BDS, that's fine. If you want to be, you know, if you don't want to, if you're not personally in favor of BDS, but you think that it's okay to do that, that's also fine. What I'm against, of course, is passing laws to shut that down. No, it's your freedom. It is your right to choose who you want to buy from. And so we should not be, you know, we should not be telling people what they should be doing with their money. On that, you know. Okay, anyway. All right. Let's move on. We got more stories. All right. So Laura Ingraham. Hold on. I was missing something here. Got too wrapped up in that BDS discussion. Okay. Now we'll do the show. So Laura Ingraham is facing a little bit of criticism for telling asylum seekers to apply, quote, in the safety of their home countries. Now, those of you might be thinking, wait a minute. What is she talking about? The whole purpose of being an asylum seeker is to get away from a country that is dangerous. But, of course, she doesn't get that. And I actually want to show you the segment where she starts off by saying this.
Girls are being abused, raped, and in some cases trafficked as part of these caravans, and it is despicable what is happening to these young people. Congress needs to get its head out of the sand and stop this madness once and for all. If someone crosses the border illegally, with rare exception, they should be turned back immediately. Family units or people posing as family units would not make this dangerous trek once word spread in their home country. Congress should pass this law. If you want to apply for asylum, that's fine. But you should do so in the safety of your home country. Or, as is beginning to happen now, once you're in the United States and you declare, you should be sent to Mexico until your case comes up for hearing. We have a backlog right now of 800,000 immigration cases. The current system today, it's obvious. Come on, everybody knows this. Democrats know this. It incentivizes human trafficking, the abuse of kids, and more illegal crossings, period. That's why you have the big jump. Any Democrat or any Republican who refuses to act now are the ones who are truly lacking in the feeling and the compassion and the empathy, not only for the illegal immigrants, but for the American people they're supposed to be representing.
Hey, asylum seekers. Yeah, the guys who are running, or the families, I should say, kids, women, children, and men, running from gangs and death squads. Just go back to your country and apply the legal way. But wait a minute. That's not how that works. Coming to America to apply for asylum is the legal way. In fact, the U.S. government's website for asylum seekers literally says, step 1, arrive in the U.S. It explains, to apply for asylum in the United States, you must be physically present in the United States, or seeking entry into the U.S. at a port of entry. Now look, is she right that there is a crisis as far as what, like lot of people, refugees, asylum seekers, wanting to come in, and we've got a gigantic backlog. Yes, that is absolutely true. Well, no, what have the Republicans done about that backlog? They have done nothing. Every time there is a bipartisan piece of legislation to do something about the border and the gigantic backlog of people wanting to get into the United States, the Republicans basically spike it. They're like, no, we will not do this. We will not do bipartisan immigration reform because, look, we hate Mexicans. We hate people from South America. We hate Latinos. And, of course, the reason that they say, that they don't like Latinos is because they assume that they will all vote for Democrats. Well, if you do things that are anti-Latino, then I wouldn't be surprised if they don't vote for you. I'm just saying. But look, here's the thing on that, right? So both of those requirements for asylum seeking require you to be physically in the United States. You've got to be here. It would take 30 seconds or less to Google that to find out the answer. Somebody did not do their homework. And as far as the responses on social media go, there were two schools of thought on why this had occurred, why she was making that argument. Either Ingraham knows and she's lying, or she is deeply stupid. You're going to get what I think later on. But first, Samantha Kramer says, that's just not how this works. You have to be in the United States to apply for asylum. Ingraham is willfully ignorant. Another one, Jeff Silverman says, Ingraham makes a statement reflecting total ignorance, a lack of comprehension on what asylum is. People who are fleeing their country for asylum in the USA are in fear of their lives. Doing it in their home country is courting their own murders by their home country. That's all great points. Sean, however, has a different point of view on this. He says, the worst part is that she's not a moron. She knows that this not only runs counter to existing U.S. and UN laws, but that it makes no sense. Further, Ingraham knows that by championing this idea, she is directly causing conflict, hardship, and death. The cruelty is the point. Holy Bullies backs that up by saying, she knows what she's saying. Ingraham is a mega xenophobe. And where do I fall on this one, right? In my view, I think she does know better. She's not a dumb person. She's not stupid, right? And I know that's, no, what are you talking about? She's dumb. No, she's ignorant, right? But she's not ignorant about this. She is deeply hateful. And maybe she's ignorant to the point where she believes the terrible stereotypes about Latinos. But as far as being stupid enough to not know this, to not know the law, no, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Again, I can overlook a certain part of ignorance, right? But like, if you don't know how this works and you're a regular person, that's fine. But she is an anchor on Fox News. She has an entire team. I do this show by myself. Okay. And I can find this out really, really easily on the internet. You don't think that she could do that? You don't think a staffer could do that? No, they absolutely could. And again, this is ignorance on purpose. This is willful ignorance, right? And look, people can learn. I learn every day. I learn new things every day. I do that for the show. But this is willful on her part. And it's malicious. And the reason is she doesn't want people coming here. She wants them to do the wrong thing so that they'll never be able to leave. And look, these people will likely end up being either murdered, imprisoned, or actually trafficked. She does not care about these people. She just doesn't. You didn't see her talking about the trans woman who was deported to El Salvador and then murdered. That blood is on the hands of the right wing, who could have given her political asylum over her identity. That's the whole point of political asylum. She had a great case to make, to make that she was in danger of being murdered for who she was, because that's what they do. However, in the end, I mean, again, that case was made because she was murdered when she got sent back. It's almost as if they're saying that, hey, we need to leave our country to flee death, Well, they have a point. But of course, ask these hateful, racist people, and they'll disagree, or worse, they'll actively try to sabotage you. So, and again, there's a lot of good responses on this, right? There's, for example, this one. Thought for my head says, also Yazidis and Christians in the Middle East. They didn't even have a country, much less a safe country, but that won't compute in Ingraham's hateful and minimized brand. So the reason I say that, to bring that up, is that's a great point. We're all about helping Middle Eastern, Christians and Yazidis and all that, right? They didn't have a home country. They couldn't have applied for asylum in the way that Ingraham wanted them to. Now, especially Syrian Christians, right? So this is somebody this is a group that the right wing is like, oh no, we need to bring them over immediately, right now. Save all the Christians in Syria. No, look, I'm not against that. I'm for that. Yes, let's save the Christians in Syria. Let's also save everyone else too. That is a refugee that needs asylum. Yes, let's do that. That would be fantastic. But instead, they only see the people that they want to see, and the rest they tell, oh no, you can just stay home. You can just stay there. Don't agree with that. Now, a couple of fun ones before we end the segment here. Jay Howe says, if your house were on fire, would you stay in the safety of your home and wait for the fire department to arrive? Hashtag Fox Logic. And finally, Arthur Dent says, Laura Ingraham on Ash Wednesday to the guy wandering in the desert for 40 days. Walk it off. That's one of the best. I don't know. She is a deeply racist and hateful individual. And I just feel bad for the people's, whose lives she is affecting. Okay. All right, one more. Let's go to Pharma Bro. All right. So Pharma Bro Martin Shkreli is back in the news. Apparently, the Wall Street Journal has been wondering how the former millionaire with one of the most punchable faces ever has been faring in prison. And I'm not saying that you should punch him in the face or that anyone should. I'm just saying that he looks like he could use one. That was completely wrong, and I should not have said that. Moving on. So it turns out Shkreli is now stuck in his ways. He is still tweeting, and he's even running his own company from his cell, from prison. And he's also even making friends. According to the report, a year into his sentence, Shkreli reportedly has paid off other inmates' poker debts and made some friends in prison with the names of Crispy and D-Block. And he's affectionately known as A-Hole, according to sources familiar with his life in prison. They apparently protect him from other inmates and caution him against playing guitar in a prison band because some of the other members have been convicted of child molestation. Well, hey man, with friends like that, Crispy and D-Block, you're the men. I mean, as if that's not the family that he's always needed. Maybe they could have, if they were on the outside, they could have told him, maybe you shouldn't defraud people. I'm just saying. Now, Shkreli also apparently managed to get a smartphone he uses to help run the company he founded, and also set up a since-deleted Twitter account without using his real name, and had solicited help from Facebook followers translating rap lyrics from Spanish. Get a hold of this post. He said, I'm trying to impress my local hombres. Need to be accepted by the Latin American criminal community here. Well, I'm guessing that's not a problem for him. Now, he also posts to his personal blog. The last one, he basically gave some advice to Roger Stone. Now, Roger Stone's in a little bit of trouble. So, for possibly breaking his gag order. So, this advice from Shkreli, he said a super judiciary entity will intervene in your case. Never, ever snitch. That is terrible advice. Again, you want to take advice from somebody who's already in prison? Not the smartest thing to do. But who knows? Apparently, Shkreli has a company that's worth $3.7 billion, or will be worth it by 2023, if Shkreli is to be believed. It's like, oh yeah, by the time I get out in 2023, I'm going to have a company worth $3.7 billion. I mean, I already own this company, and he does, actually. This company is Phoenixis, and he's not supposed to be running it. His friends are supposed to be running it, and he's not supposed to have anything to do with it because he is literally in prison, right? Now, this whole revelation might be really bad if you're trying to sell the company to, investors for a gigantic buyout. Because nobody wants to be involved with Martin Shkreli. In fact, here we have the Austrian interior designer who actually holds $1 million stake in Phoenixis. He said, quote, "This investment is an absolute disaster. We can't get information, and anything they do send out, we don't know if it's trustworthy." And look, they want to distance themselves from Shkreli, understandably so, because Shkreli is a disaster. And in fact, it could also be a disaster for him. Shkreli's involvement with Phoenixis could land him in additional legal trouble, according to the Wall Street Journal. Again, you're not supposed to run a business from a jail cell. Oops. So who knows what's going to happen on that? But also, who would have thought that we would have heard from this guy so soon? I guess it all shows you that douchebags never disappear and never die. Okay. That's it. That's all I got time for. Guys, thank you for joining. Thank you for going on the nation with me today. Please like and share. If you haven't already, please consider becoming a member, either through the Patreon account or through joining on YouTube. Thank you so much for doing so. Those of you who are members, you help the show. You keep us going. Got some new stuff in the are coming in the Teespring shop, so check that out. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Love you guys, and remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. TYT is next. We'll see you tomorrow.